Hello friends, I'm B, and I use my computer a lot. I also use my keyboard a lot. Sometimes I write stories, sometimes I do transcripts, but for all of it, I use my keyboard. So why not have my keyboard be something I enjoy using? Why not have it be something I made myself? Welcome to another keyboard building video. This all came about when I fell down the rabbit hole of custom keyboard videos. For some reason they kept popping up in my YouTube recommendations, so I watched them, and there were some very interesting builds with some nice sounding keyboards. And after seeing plenty of YouTubers like Teotypes, Hippotech, Larses, Shubes, Switch and Click, and others, I figured why not try making one? Normally money would be an issue, but I was 2 months into lockdown with nothing to spend my money on and nothing to do. So making a custom keyboard it is. I guess I'll start with my old keyboard. It's a Kogan RGB mechanical keyboard. It's okay, it did its job, but I bought it a year ago as the first mechanical keyboard I ever bought. And it's not good. I got Cherry MX Blues because apparently blues are recommended for typists, and I do more writing than gaming, so clicky switches it is. Sounds like a lot of horseshit though. Point is, I couldn't stand how loud my keyboard was, especially after watching tons of keyboard sound tests praising the quality of the fuck. And while most sound tests are about as accurate as a Photoshop magazine photo, I did want something that sounded better than this. Anyway, it was time to shop. When it came to shopping, I started with the board size and the case. Originally, I wanted 10 keyless as that is the size I'm most familiar with, but TKL layouts are hard to find, plus they're more expensive in general. I didn't want to go 60 because I use the arrow keys, so I went for 65. With this in mind, I found a kit from KBD fans. For the case, I got the tofu65 in aluminium. For the PCB, I got the DZ RGB version 3, a 65% PCB with hot swap. It was important I got hot swap because I was not going to buy a soldering iron for one build. And for the plate, I chose brass. From what I've read, it's stronger than aluminium and it has a better sound. Next came the switches. I looked through Reddit, saw YouTube videos, and eventually I came across the Durock Cannon Key lavender switches. They sounded nice enough in the sound test, so I got them. There were also lavender stabilizers, so I bought those too, why not? And of course, the keycaps. This was an extensive search because I seem to have trouble finding nice purple keycaps. And in case you can't tell, I love purple. I found these cute keycaps on eBay. They're a PBT XDA height. They got the job done, I guess. So I got my stuff set up and I was ready for a day of key building. As well as the kit, I also bought a lube station and some tools from KBD fans, including tweezers, 2 paintbrushes, and a switch stem holder. Remind me what this is called. First part was to use the switch opener I got to open all the switches and separate the parts. I had a bit of trouble at first, but I soon got the hang of it. However, what started as fun eventually went from therapeutic to tedious. Look, I've got all of these switch parts right here. Like, this part's starting to fill up. And look how many I still have left to go. This is ridiculous. You think this is ridiculous? It's gonna get worse. Interestingly enough, the station couldn't really hold all the parts. I thought it would be bigger enough to hold them, but oh well. I feel like this switch lube kit is helpful if you're making a 40%. Not like a 60 or a 65% because this is filling up so quick. Eventually, I opened up and separated 70 switches. Now it's time to lube them. First, I bag glued all the springs. I used Krytox 105 and added a few drops. I've heard some people say 5 drops is enough. I've heard others say 10. So I went down the middle and did 7. Then I blew in the bag and shook it for as long as I could. I tried to go to 10 minutes, but the air started escaping, so I kind of had to stop after 5 minutes. Next, it was time to lube the stem and the housing. I set up my work area with a paper towel to the side where I could wipe the bristles of my brush. This helped me keep my area clean, plus it got rid of residual lube that I couldn't see. I followed Type's tutorial, which you can find in the description, along with some other videos I used as guides. As they say, less is more, so I took some krytox65 grade 0 on just the tip of the paintbrush and used it to lube the bottom housing. Then I took the stem holder and lubed the stem. Once it was all brushed up, I put the switch back together and tested the sound between the one spare unlubed switch I had and the lubed switch to measure sound and feel. Sounds good! Now time to do it 69 more times. I went back and forth between lubing, testing the sound, and lubing. It took a while to get consistent. It seems like every switch sounded different, and some of the switches didn't sound good at all. Okay, I'm calling this one the sucky switch. It refuses to sound good. But pretty soon I got into the rhythm of it, which is good. Once you get into a groove and figure out what technique works for you, you can just distract your brain with some enriching stimuli for the next several hours. You can binge watch your favorite show, or do what I did and listen to Everywhere at the end of time. That's a bad idea, don't do that actually. As I watched the station fill up with switches, I must have felt like I was getting somewhere, but the pile of parts did not seem to shrink. My brain was lying to me about how much progress I actually made, and even when I had gotten into the rhythm, so to speak, I still made basic mistakes that most people would make at least once when they make their first keyboard. I had problems with this one because it's the wrong way around. Oopsie poopsie. You can really see me run out of steam towards the end. At some point during switch lubing, I was on autopilot, so maybe I lubed some of the bottom housings twice, or I forgot to lube them at all. I also got inconsistent with testing sound and wiping the brush. Either way, I was done. All in all, it took 4 hours from start to finish. By the end of it, my brain was mush, but at least I finished all the switches. I could do more, but I had to take a break to wash my hands and get some dinner. It's pizza time, baby! Next came time to lube and tune the stabilizers. Here I was thinking this was going to be the easy part. Oh dear. I applied so much lube to the wire that I could not even see it. And I didn't even have dielectric grease, so I just had to stick with the krytox65 grade 0. Not sure if the grease would have made a difference, but the 2050 is good enough, I think. People who know their shit about keyboards, please tell me. When it came to actually tuning the stabs, there was a lot of trial and error, mainly because the wire would get stuck when I pressed on the keycaps. At first I thought that I was wrong. You can overlube the stabilizers, so I wiped the lube off. Turns out they were screwed on wrong. After watching a video on how to install stabs by Juju, I found out that there's a little foot at the end of the stabilizer housing, and it's meant to sit under the PCB, not on top of it. This sounds obvious to people who have made keyboards before, but I did not know because no one told me this, and I do not have the cognitive facilities to figure this shit out for myself. Once that was fixed, I managed to get them working, but now they sounded rattly. So, back to lubing the stabilizers all over again, and honestly, I would rather lube a full-sized keyboard's worth of switches before I tune another goddamn stabilizer. Now that the stabs were installed, it's time to stick the plate and switches onto the PCB. This is definitely something you have to get a feel for. I bent so much stuff. I bent pins, I bent the plate, I bent a lot. But of course, bent pins means the switch don't work. Thank God the tweezers I got with the kit were good at straightening the bent pins. But you gotta be careful with straightening, lest you bend it too far in the other direction or get a nasty kink in the pin. At least I had 3 spare switches on hand if I needed them. After fixing the switches and the plate, I tested the switches and the PCB with switch header to make sure every key worked. Some of them didn't, so that was quite annoying to fix after so long. The right arrow key didn't even work even though both the pins were straight. Then once I tried to fix all the bent pins and the switches that didn't work, the letter keys that didn't work were fixed, but now the bottom row of arrow keys was the problem child. But after readjusting the plate and putting all the switches in again, all the keys worked after a few tries. Now it was time to screw in the PCB with the plate into the case. I laid foam underneath the PCB to dampen the sound, and then I screwed the PCB in through the plate. Now that that was all done, it was time to put on keycaps. I can't tell you how satisfying it is to put on the keycaps. It means you're almost done with the build after hours of lubing and plenty of mess ups. All you have to do is concern yourself with aesthetic. And even while putting the keys on, I could feel the difference. It just felt so much smoother. And with that, my keyboard was complete. It took about 10 to 12 hours in all, not including breaks, but it ended up being pretty good. And now, a sound test. Sounds pretty nice to me. There are a few things like the spacebar is still a little rattly, but I'm still pretty proud of myself. For a first board, it sounds lovely, it feels quite smooth, and even over the course of a few days after building it, I've been using my keyboard and typing a lot more just because it sounds so nice. Once again, thanks for watching. If you want to build a keyboard for yourself, check the links in the description to tutorials I used and creators I watched. They are some very good starting points. I probably won't make any other keyboards, at least until I grow tired of how this one sounds or I stop being poor. Bye everyone!